You're here just for the inheritance, aren't you? But I won't give you a single cent. Her cold expression carried a weight that froze my heart. For a moment, I couldn't believe my ears. My mother-in-law, sitting across me, gave me a look filled with obvious disdain. That gaze stabbed sharply into my chest. At that moment, I was at a loss for words. The expression on her face was so indifferent that it made all my efforts feel futile. Do you really believe that's what I'm thinking? My voice finally came out, but it sounded hollow even to me. Of course! I won't let you have it. The $3 million will all go to my eldest son's family. Her words carried calculated cruelty and confidence. No matter how devotedly I had cared for her, there was no trace of gratitude in her heart. I felt something deep inside me crumble. Memories flashed vividly in my mind. 10 years of caring for her, sacrificing my life. Making meals at night, giving her medicine, taking her to countless hospital visits. All of it now seemed like a meaningless effort. I've taken care of you for 10 years. But is that how you've always seen me? My voice trembled, but I forced myself to stay calm. Yet her expression didn't change. In fact, she smiled smugly, as if she enjoyed watching me struggle. I tried to respond calmly, but the mother-in-law's unchanging expression made it clear. My sacrifices meant nothing to her. Well, it doesn't matter, does it? For a moment, I remained silent. I felt drained of the strength to argue against her cold, unfeeling words, but something inside me shifted. That was the moment I decided my entire way of living had to change. My name is Mary Spears. After my husband passed away, life in the Spears household changed dramatically. Still, my days moved on steadily as I cared for my mother-in-law, Heather. I worked from home as an illustrator while caring for her every need. My son, Ken, had moved out after finding a job, leaving only the two of us in this large house. For someone like me, who lost my parents to an accident at a young age and was raised by relatives, this house was finally the family I'd longed for. At least until my husband, Brian, passed away. But living with Heather was far from peaceful. She had grown up as an only daughter in a wealthy family, always getting her way. To her, I was still the poor girl she looked down upon as her inferior daughter-in-law. Mary, this dish is a bit bland, don't you think? What happened to those cooking skills from your restaurant job? Her voice was laced with sarcasm as she spoke from her bed. I'm sorry, Heather. I'll make it more flavorful next time. I replied quietly, but deep inside her words felt like tiny thorns piercing me. Every complaint she made was about small, insignificant things. Even hiring a helper a few times a week drew her ire. A daughter-in-law should care for her elders herself. Isn't that natural? There were moments when I wondered if I should have left this house when my husband died, but this place held precious memories of Brian and Ken. It was the house where Ken grew up and where I spent years building our life. So no matter how much Heather hurt me, I endured it somehow. My brother-in-law Chris and his wife Natalie lived nearby, but they never helped. Chris had been spoiled since childhood, never working seriously in his life. Heather doted on him, despite his lack of responsibility. I noticed Heather's savings and pensions slowly disappearing after Brian's passing. Mother, haven't there been a lot of withdrawals from your bank account recently? Her response still lingers in my mind. Chris needed some money. He's the eldest son after all. I bit my tongue. I knew Chris was a spendthrift. Natalie, too, was someone who splurged on luxury brands while neglecting her household duties. Yet Heather never complained about Natalie. Natalie is such a sweet girl. A daughter-in-law should know how to navigate situations gracefully. Hearing those words made my chest tighten with frustration. No matter what I did, I realized Heather would never accept me. Chris and Natalie moved closer to the family home shortly after my father-in-law died. My father-in-law had always been strict and disapproved of Chris's behavior. I assumed Chris and Heather must have felt relieved when he passed away. He's the eldest son, so of course he should be close to this house. Yet whenever I asked Chris to help with her care, he would always avoid it. I'm busy with work, Mary. Natalie has a lot on her plate, too. Work? I had never seen Chris work seriously in my entire life. As for Natalie, I had heard she didn't even manage the household properly, but Heather never scolded her. One day, Ken returned home. Mom, I have some news. I'm getting married. Seeing his happy expression, my chest grew warm. The only reason I managed to endure this house for so long was because of Ken. Really? Oh, that's wonderful, Ken. I hugged him tightly, feeling a tear of joy swell in my eyes. Brian, Ken is going to be happy, isn't he? I whispered silently to my late husband, but even as I celebrated Ken's happiness, I couldn't help but wonder. What would happen to my life in Heather's care now? Shortly after Ken's visit, Heather suffered a stroke. She woke up in the hospital, her voice faint, repeating over and over, "I want to go home." My husband and I had once discussed putting her in a care facility. How heartless can you be? Are you trying to shame us by sending Mother to a facility? This house is everything to me. I want to stay here. Her voice carried the pride of a matriarch and her attachment to the house she protected. Mary, will manage this together. Back then, his strong and supportive words saved me. But now Brian was gone. Caregiving was never easy from the beginning. Every day I heard hurtful whispers from Chris and Natalie. Poor Mother. I wonder if Mary is even caring for her properly. Make sure you sit her up straight, or her back will hurt. The two of them never once lifted a hand to help, but they always had something to say. Their cruel words hurt me deeply, but Brian's support kept me going. Don't let their words get to you, Mary. You're doing enough. His encouragement was my rock, but then one day Brian suddenly collapsed. He came home from work, complaining of a headache, lay down, and never woke up again. It was a stroke, sudden and cruel. During the funeral, Chris and Natalie didn't bother to show up until it was over. It was Ken who stayed by my side and helped me. Mom, Dad had a beautiful funeral. He would have been proud. Hearing Ken's words, I finally let the tears fall. Life after Brian's passing became even harder. I continued caring for Heather while dealing with Chris and Natalie's neglect. Mom's pension. Can you lend me some? I'll pay it back soon. It wasn't just once or twice that Chris came asking for money. Heather, instead of stopping him, would easily hand over the money. Chris is in trouble. We have no choice. I knew the inheritance Brian had arranged before his death. Heather must have inherited a considerable amount, but Chris had spent his share. Now they relied entirely on her savings and pension. Mary, you should dress a little nicer. Look at me. You need to sparkle a little. Natalie, wrapped in designer brands, laughed as she spoke. Behind her, Heather nodded approvingly, which made my frustration boil over. On top of that, Chris and Natalie spread rumors about me. Mary's only doing all this for the inheritance, you know. Hearing those words made me feel a strange mix of anger and disbelief. Despite paying for everything, the caregiver, medicine, and living expenses, they assumed it was natural. If I ignored them, their words became even sharper. See? She's ignoring us again. That's why I can't stand her. Even in those moments, I kept reminding myself of one thing. This house held Brian's memories. It was the home where Ken had grown up. I couldn't give up that easily. The tiles at the entrance were chosen by Brian. He compared colors over and over and finally smiled, saying, "This one feels right." In the living room, faint traces of Ken's childhood scribbles still remained. "I love you, Dad," he had written in uneven childlike lines. Seeing those remnants made my chest tighten, but relying on these memories to keep going was wearing me down. Every time I entered Heather's room, her words stung like daggers. "Mary, breakfast still isn't here? What are you doing?" I smiled as I placed the tray down. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Today, it's rice porridge and soup." "Ugh, rice porridge again? You're getting lazy, aren't you?" I wanted to argue, but my exhaustion swallowed the words. I only managed to mumble a faint apology. Stepping out of her room, I leaned against the wall and sighed deeply. "Is this really okay?" I asked myself silently, but I knew there would be no answer. I imagined Brian's voice as I had done so many times before. "You're doing great, Mary." I clung to that memory, even though it felt like it was fading away into the fog. Why is it that no matter how hard I try, nothing changes? As I walked back into the living room, a pile of unpaid bills caught my eye. I was paying for everything, the caregiver, medicine, and the rest of the household expenses. How much longer could I keep this up? At that moment, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ken. "Mom, are you doing okay? I want to bring my fiance over soon. Do you have a good day for that?" Reading those words brought a brief warmth to my heart. Ken, I just want you to be happy. But even that moment of hope was shattered by Heather's voice. Mary, turn on the TV for me, will you? Yes, right away, I replied with a forced smile. Behind that smile, I felt myself slowly disappearing. Is this really okay? I kept asking myself, but no answer came. Ken came home one evening while I was preparing dinner. I heard the front door open, and instinctively, I stopped what I was doing and looked up. I'm home, Mom. His bright voice echoed through the kitchen, and my heart leapt. Wiping my hands on my apron, I rushed to the entrance. Ken! Standing there was my son, taller and more grown-up than I remembered. His broad shoulders and matured face made me pause, seeing just how much he'd grown. Why didn't you call to say you were coming? I wanted to surprise you. Plus, I just wanted to see your face. His simple words warmed my heart, and I felt tears prick my eyes. Don't cry, Mom. It hasn't been that long. He laughed, though I could see the faint embarrassment on his face. I know, but seeing you today makes me so happy. For the first time in a long while, my tightly wounded heart felt a moment of release. I've got something to tell you, Mom. What is it? I'm getting married. The words froze me in place, my heart skipping a beat. Really? You're getting married? Yeah, I want you to meet her. She's an amazing person. Hearing the joy in his voice, my chest swelled with emotion. Oh, that's wonderful, Ken. We met at work. She's kind, gentle. Honestly, she reminds me of you, Mom. He said it so casually, but his sincerity shone through. My heart warmed as I realized how happy he was. And Mom? He paused for a moment, hesitating. After we get married, I want you to live with us. For a moment, my mind went blank. Live with Ken and his wife? It was something I had secretly wished for, but I never thought it would happen. But what about your grandmother? I know it's complicated, but I don't want you to carry everything alone anymore. His words were filled with kindness and determination. I felt tears building up again, but I held them back. Ken, I appreciate it, but it's not that simple. I know, Mom, but we're family. Let's figure it out together. His gaze was steady, and all I could do was nod silently. That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. Ken's words echoed in my mind, come live with us. It felt like a dream, yet reality quickly sobered me. What about Mother? I knew Ken's fiancé couldn't be burdened with her care. My thoughts swirled in circles as I stared at the dark ceiling. What am I trying to protect? I had spent 10 years sacrificing my life for Heather, and now I hesitated to choose a new path. If I leave, what will happen to her? Images of Chris and Natalie flashed through my mind. Would they really take care of her? I already knew the answer. Of course not. I whispered the words aloud, bitterness rising in my chest. They'll just leave her. The thought made me angry, but it also deepened my despair. I curled up under the blanket, tears streaming down silently. Brian, what should I do? I searched for his voice in my memory, but all I could see was his fading smile. A few days later, Ken spoke to Chris about Heather's care. When he returned home, his face was tense and filled with anger. Mom, you won't believe what they said. What happened? Chris said I should take Grandma with me. He and Natalie have no intention of taking care of her. His voice trembled with frustration. They even said terrible things about you, Mom. Hearing that, my heart sank. Ken, I don't want you to worry about this. Don't say that, Mom. This isn't just your problem. I appreciated his words, but at that moment, Heather said something shocking. I always thought you saw me as a burden, Mary. A burden? Her words hit me like a sharp slap. You're just here for the inheritance, aren't you? But you won't get a single cent. All of it will go to Chris and Natalie. I froze. My chest tightened painfully as I stared at her cold, unyielding expression. After everything I've done for you these past 10 years, is that what you really think of me? My voice shook, but she remained unchanged, her demeanor calm, almost smug. At that moment, I made up my mind. I understand. I'll leave this house. Heather's face turned pale, the smugness vanishing in an instant. What? You're joking, right? Oh, I'm not joking. I've paid for everything. Your care, the household, all of it. From now on, Chris and Natalie can take care of you. Heather's face grew increasingly anxious. Oh, they can't handle it. They don't care about me like you do. Well, that's not my concern anymore. You chose them, didn't you? My voice was steady, but I could feel the years of bottled-up anger bubbling beneath it. Heather's shoulders shook as she tried to respond. What am I supposed to do without you? Well, I don't know, but Chris and Natalie are the ones you should rely on. My words struck her silent. For the first time, I saw her fear. I turned to Chris and Natalie, who were called to the living room. What the hell? Why should we take care of her? We're busy. We thought you'd keep handling everything. If that's the case, you can decide to place her in a facility. I won't stop you. Chris's eyes widened, and I could see him finally grasping the weight of the situation. Fine, we'll do it, but don't expect us to do it like you did. His voice was bitter, filled with resentment. I turned to Heather one last time. I hope you'll be happy with your choice. Without waiting for a response, I turned away. I packed my things quickly, the years of burdens piling up in each bag. As I left through the front door, Heather's shouting voice followed me. Mary, come back! But I didn't turn around. I whispered silently to myself. Goodbye, Mother. I took my first step outside the house, the cool air brushing against my face. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of freedom. The night was calm, quieter than I had ever noticed before. All I could hear was the sound of my own footsteps, steady and resolute. After leaving Heather's house, I moved in with Ken and his fiancée, Lily. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. Their home was warm and filled with a quiet peace that I had almost forgotten. Mom, you can relax now. You don't have to carry everything by yourself anymore. His words brought tears to my eyes, but this time, they were tears of relief. Lily welcomed me with open arms, her bright smile easing my hesitation. Mary, I'm so happy to have you here with us. Her kindness and warmth made me feel like I belonged for the first time in years. Days passed and I gradually settled into my new life. I helped with small chores around the house while continuing my work as an illustrator. Every day, Ken and Lily showed their appreciation. Thank you, Mary. You've been such a big help. Hearing those words made my heart feel light. It was such a small thing, yet it meant everything to me. I hadn't realized how lonely I'd been until I finally felt seen and appreciated. One evening, while preparing dinner, Lily entered the kitchen with a smile. You finished so early today, Mary. I thought I'd help out a little since I had time. You're always so thoughtful. Thank you. She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder and I nearly cried at the simple gesture. I had spent so long carrying everything alone that this small act of care felt overwhelming. We're really lucky to have you, you know. Her words stayed with me as we set the table together. Later that night, the three of us sat around the dinner table, sharing simple conversation. The laughter and warmth made me realize how far I had come. This life, this quiet, ordinary happiness, was something I had fought for. One day, Lily approached me with a shy smile, her hand resting on her stomach. Mary, I wanted to tell you something. What is it? We're going to have a baby. Her words stopped me in my tracks. I looked at her, my heart swelling with joy. Lily, that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you both. Tears welled up in my eyes as I reached out to hold her hands. Thank you for sharing this with me. Of course, you're family after all. Her words echoed in my mind. Family. After everything I had been through, I finally felt like I was part of one again. As time passed, Lily's belly grew and I busied myself preparing for the baby's arrival. I found joy in the little tasks, folding tiny clothes, preparing meals, and supporting Lily. Mom, you're really excited about this, huh? Of course. I can't wait to meet my grandchild. His laughter filled the room and I felt my chest swell with happiness. The days that followed were filled with small but precious moments. On quiet afternoons, I would sip tea with Lily, talking about the future. Have you thought of any baby names yet? Not yet, but I'll start thinking about it soon. Her gentle laugh brought warmth to my heart. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to look forward to the future. When the baby finally arrived, I held the tiny life in my arms and felt a tear roll down my cheek. Welcome to the world, little one. At that moment, everything I had endured seemed to fade into the past. The pain, the loneliness, and the years of struggle had led me here, to this moment of peace. Months passed and life in Ken and Lily's home gradually settled into a rhythm. Every morning, I would see them off to work, prepare meals, and care for the house. I found happiness in the smallest of moments, like hearing Ken's laughter or Lily's cheerful voice. Their gratitude for my presence made all the difference. One quiet afternoon, as I sat by the window with a cup of tea, Lily approached me. "Mary, I've been meaning to say." "What is it?" "Thank you for everything you've done for us." Her words caught me off guard, and for a moment I didn't know how to respond. "I should be the one thanking you. You've given me a family again." Lily smiled warmly, and I felt a deep sense of peace. That evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Ken turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Mom, are you happy here?" His question made me pause. "Yes, Ken, I truly am." For the first time in years, I could say those words without hesitation. As I looked at Ken, Lily, and my grandchild, I realized that I had finally found my place. The shadows of the past no longer held me down. Brian's smile flashed in my memory, and I felt his presence, as if he were telling me, "Well done." I whispered silently into the quiet air, "Thank you, Brian." Life isn't always kind, but sometimes it leads us to the moments we truly deserve. I sat back, watching my family laugh and talk, my heart full of gratitude and hope. This was my home, my family, my future.
My mother-in-law insulted my cooking. It's inedible. What happened next was total chaos.
My name is Elizabeth, but most people call me Liz for short. I'm a 36-year-old registered dietitian working at an elementary school in my neighborhood. My husband, Jake, who's also 36, works for a food manufacturing company. He works in the research and development department for his company, which require really demanding hours. He's always busy developing new products and rarely has a quiet moment. Despite his crazy work schedule, he's a loving and doting father to our little girl, Lily. As a family of 3, our greatest joy comes from food, whether cooking it, growing it, or sharing meals together. I've always made it a priority to create meals that turn our dinner table into a fun and heartwarming place. On his rare days off, Jake loves to play chef. He carefully blends spices to make his signature curry from scratch, or fire up his smoker to prepare mouth-watering smoked meats and fish. Lily, on the other hand, loves tending to her small balcony garden. She gets so excited when she harvests her carefully grown cherry tomatoes, strawberries, or whatever's in season. We live in a suburban apartment that's a bit far from the bus stops and train stations. But the trade-off is a spacious balcony where we can enjoy our hobbies. I genuinely feel lucky to live here. In other words, we're just your typical average American family. When I was a child, I was a terribly picky eater. I wouldn't touch anything except plain white toast and milk. My poor mom didn't know what to do with me. That all changed in elementary school when I discovered the joy of food through our school lunches. Our school had an unusual lunch program for the time. It was buffet style. Watching my friends pick their food with excitement inspired me to try things I'd never eaten before. Slowly, I began to eat foods I once thought I hated. This is so delicious. Sharing those words with my friends made every meal taste even better. Starting in middle school, I had to bring my own lunch. Since my mom worked full-time, I took on the responsibility of making my own lunch boxes. At first, I'd burn the eggs or sausages, but as I improved, I felt so proud of myself. Cooking became something I truly enjoyed. Those early experiences are what inspired me to become a dietitian. My husband, Jake, has his own complicated relationship with food that shaped his life. When I met him in college through the tennis club, he was shockingly thin. His friends jokingly called him Bones because of how scrawny he was. I don't really care about food. He rarely joined group dinners or parties, and his idea of eating during practice was grabbing a protein shake or a meal replacement bar. But all of that changed at a club potluck party one day. The party was meant to honor our graduating seniors, but the organizer forgot to book the restaurant. Since this happened the day before, we had no choice but to organize a potluck, with plans to hold a formal farewell later. Everyone brought something to share. I decided to prepare sandwiches and lasagna, something simple and easy for a crowd. The party was going well. As I enjoyed the other food people brought, I noticed Jake sitting in the corner, drinking beer and ignoring the food. "Hey, try this. It's really good." His friend handed him a plate of my lasagna. At first, Jake refused, but after being told it was rude not to eat something someone made, he reluctantly took a bite. Wow, I didn't know homemade lasagna could taste this good. His eyes lit up with surprise, and in no time, he had devoured the entire plate. He quickly reached for a second serving, and even started sampling other dishes at the table. Once things settled down, he came over to me. You're really amazing. I can't believe you made that lasagna on your own. It's nothing special. Just put all the ingredients in a casserole dish and stick it in the oven. I'm sure that most people could make a simple lasagna. No way. This is a talent, Liz. This is the best lasagna that I've ever tasted. I didn't think my lasagna was anything special, but his reaction had a reason behind it. His mother, Gwen. Gwen was what you'd call a terrible cook, someone who managed to ruin even the simplest meals. According to Jake, her baked dishes were always burnt to a crisp, and her stews were boiled so long that the ingredients turned to mush. One time, she served something called cream stew. Instead, it was a neon pink gelatinous blob that tasted sour. For Jake, this wasn't a rare occurrence. It happened almost every day ever since he was a little boy. To make things worse, Gwen refused to let Jake eat anything other than her cooking. Even though his schools provided lunch, she insisted on sending him with her homemade meals every single day, from kindergarten through middle school. The school staff tried to reason with her, explaining that allergy-safe meals were available and that Jake didn't need a packed lunch. But Gwen wouldn't listen. Whenever they brought it up, she would storm into the school and yell at the teachers. Eventually, she even refused to pay the school lunch fees, stubbornly insisting that Jake eat only the food she prepared. On top of that, Gwen held extremely outdated beliefs. When Jake entered middle school and tried to make his own lunch as a form of rebellion, she flatly refused to let him use the kitchen. Cooking is a woman's job, so the kitchen is no place for you to be. As my son, it's your duty to eat the meals I make for you. But Jake didn't give up. He started waking up earlier than Gwen to prepare his own lunch. When she found out, she threw his homemade lunch straight into the trash. This became a deep, painful memory for him. He told me how it made him lose all interest in food. Even when he moved out for college and started living alone, his childhood trauma stayed with him. He stuck to cheap, minimal nutrition meal replacement foods that he could buy in bulk. I want to change that now. I want to learn how to make good food, and I want to move past this. Liz, will you help me and teach me to cook? When Jake begged me to help him learn, I agreed as long as he paid for the groceries. I started going to his apartment, and he'd come to mine. Week by week, I taught him how to cook simple meals: grilled chicken, pasta with homemade sauce, stir-fried vegetables. Those lessons became something more, and soon, we found ourselves falling in love. We'll start with something simple today, okay? No pressure. You're doing great. Thanks, Liz. I've never done this before, but I really want to get this right. At first, he was so awkward in the kitchen, he didn't even know how to hold a knife properly. But as the weeks passed, I watched him improve, gaining confidence and skill. I was so proud of the progress he was making in such a short time. Look at this pasta. It looks amazing. Taste it. You'll see how far you've come. Wow, it's really good. I can't believe I made this. I've never been this proud of something I cooked before. Through cooking, I could see Jake's trauma start to heal. Every time he smiled and said, "This is delicious," it warmed my heart. Our relationship grew stronger over time. After we graduated, Jake landed a job in product development at a major food company, while I started working as a dietitian at an elementary school. A few years later, once we both felt financially stable, we decided to get married. Let's get married, Liz. All this time we've spent together, cooking, laughing, building a life, has made me happier than I ever thought possible. Of course. And let's keep making good food together for the rest of our lives. The smile on his face that day is something I'll never forget. But there was one worry that still lingered in my mind: his mother, Gwen. From everything Jake had told me, I had a feeling she would be a force to be reckoned with, and I was right. When we visited for our wedding introduction, I was shocked by what I saw. Jake's father, Robert, was even thinner than Jake used to be. His gaunt figure and pale face made him look more like a skeleton or a zombie than a living person. In stark contrast, his mother was plump, with a rosy complexion that suggested perfect health. She didn't seem to oppose our marriage, but she was incredibly boastful. She went on and on about coming from a prestigious family, how she was loved as an only child, and what a perfect housewife she had been since marriage. If Jake wants to spend the rest of his life with you, then I suppose the marriage is fine. Her approval came surprisingly easily, and I silently hoped the rest of our visit would pass without any trouble. But that was not to be. I had planned to leave before dinner, but Gwen insisted we stay to eat. I'm sorry, but I already have plans after this. I politely declined, but she kept insisting, saying, Stay and have dinner. I didn't want to offend her, so I reluctantly agreed. But when the food was served, I was speechless. What is this? It was beyond anything I could have imagined. The bowl of rice was yellow and mushy with a sharp, sour smell that hit me the moment it was placed in front of me. The onion soup had a massive lump of seasoning just sitting at the bottom, while the few pieces of green onion floating on the top had turned a sickly brown color. A small side dish of spinach had, of all things, strawberry jam drizzled over the top. And the main dish, a piece of baked fish, was smothered in a thick layer of peanut butter. Go ahead and eat as much as you like. There's plenty more where that came from. With a proud expression, she urged me to eat. Summoning every bit of courage, I took a bite of the rice, but my instinct screamed at me. If I kept eating, I was sure to get sick. I set my fork down after that one bite. I'm so sorry, but I really do have plans that I can't miss. I practically fled their house, desperate to escape. When I got home, the small amount I had eaten made me feel so ill that I was bedridden for 2 days. I'm so sorry. I didn't think it would be that bad. You shouldn't have forced yourself to eat. It's not your fault. I just didn't have the courage to say no. I tried to comfort him, but Jake's expression turned serious. My mom's always been like that. Once we're married, you don't have to deal with her much. If anything happens again, I promise I'll protect you. I decided to trust his words. But our married life quickly turned into a nightmare. Gwen felt insulted that I didn't eat her cooking that day and seemed to take it as a personal attack. From then on, she made my life miserable, especially when it came to food. We had rented an apartment halfway between both of our workplaces, but Gwen began showing up almost every day. She went as far as to wait outside our door and would force her way in. And the first thing she would do was to inspect my groceries. Instant noodles and canned soup? How could you eat such toxic garbage? There must be something wrong with your taste buds. She would also comment on the bottled water Jake liked to drink. Buying water? That's so wasteful. Water is water. It all tastes the same. Her criticisms extended to fresh produce as well. Look at these cabbage leaves. They're slightly yellow. You're really buying this rotting garbage? Are you blind? If she saw imported meat or fish in my fridge, she would rant about it. You have no idea how this was raised. How could you eat something so disgusting? Finally, she would pull out my receipts and start scolding me. You spend this much on just groceries? You're hopeless at managing a household budget. Eventually, Jake couldn't stand it anymore and snapped. Mom, that's enough. Stop interfering with our life. You need to leave now and focus on your own home. Jake had never raised his voice to her before, so his anger shocked her. She left quickly after that. But that peace was short-lived. Not long after, we received wonderful news. I was pregnant with a baby girl. Our beautiful baby was born during the spring when the cherry blossoms bloom, so we named her Lily, hoping she'd blossom beautifully in her own life. Of course, we couldn't completely ignore Jake's parents now that they had a granddaughter. Slowly, we began rebuilding our relationship with them. Lily was their first grandchild, and they absolutely doted on her. They showered her with gifts, sent cards and congratulations for every milestone, and even showed up for her birthdays. I thought Lily was truly blessed. I really hoped those peaceful days would continue forever, but a turning point came when Lily started preschool. The trigger was the renovation of my in-laws' home. Their house was over a decade old, and its worn-out condition was starting to become a problem. Since Jake's parents were getting older, They decided to renovate it to be more manageable for an aging couple. However, because it was such a large-scale renovation, Jake's parents needed a temporary place to live. The construction company arranged a small functional apartment, but Gwen immediately rejected it. "It's tiny, and the amenities look cheap. I refuse to stay there." Robert tried to find other options, but nothing met Gwen's unreasonable standards. As the move-out deadline approached, they ran out of time. In the end, Gwen turned to us. "Let us stay with you for a while." Honestly, the thought of living with her under the same roof made my stomach churn. "Well, if it's only temporary, I suppose it's okay." We agreed on the condition that they'd split the cost for rent, utilities, and groceries. And so, our cohabitation arrangement was made. But living together turned out to be far worse than I could have imagined. Gwen ignored the chore schedule we had agreed upon. Instead, she only focused on the things she wanted to do, like taking care of Lily. She also ignored our building's trash rules and parking lot agreements, which caused constant issues with the other residents. On top of that, her idea of helping Lily was simply spoiling her, which made things even harder for me. For example, if Lily refused to eat her vegetables at dinner, "Oh dear, what a mean mommy, trying to make you eat things you don't like. Here, Grandma will get rid of it for you." She would grab Lily's plate and dump the food straight into the trash. "Please stop doing that. What kind of mother makes food that her child can't eat? You're doing a lousy job as a mother." Her words cut deep, and her actions only reinforced bad habits for Lily. To make things worse, she would give Lily things like chocolate and raw fish, things I wasn't ready to let her eat yet. It was hypocritical. She constantly criticized store-bought food for being full of chemicals, yet happily gave Lily packaged snacks just to please her. To make matters worse, Gwen threw away the meals I had prepped in the fridge, as well as the meat and fish I had carefully marinated. "This is such a waste. Please stop throwing away perfectly good food. These dishes are tasteless garbage. And you call yourself a dietitian. What are you even making?" She ignored my pleas and completely proceeded to ruin the rest of my cooking by pouring in absurd amounts of soy sauce, salt, and sugar. The only saving grace was that our apartment had an IH stove, and since she couldn't figure out how to use it, she wasn't able to cook anything herself. But her harassment escalated even further until she began tampering with my personal belongings. One day, she tossed out my carefully tended pickling bed, calling it mud. Then, she threw away the knife set and electric pressure cooker Jake had gifted me for my birthdays over the years. "Why are you doing this?" My voice trembled. Having those gifts from my husband discarded felt like a piece of our bond had been destroyed. Even the personalized glasses our friends had given us as a wedding gift, and the tableware Jake and I had picked out together were labeled junk and thrown away. Then, she crossed an unforgivable line. She went into my closet. Claiming it was to remove odors, she poured dissolved instant coffee all over my clothes. And she had the nerve to do this while I was at work. By the time I got home and discovered it, it was too late. All of my clothes were ruined. Among them was the dress my mother had lovingly prepared for my Sweet 16 ceremony. No, this was something my mother had gifted me. It was precious. I sobbed as I told Jake what had happened. "I can't take this anymore. Your mother has ruined everything of mine." When Jake saw the disaster in my closet, he finally snapped. "Mom, enough is enough." He confronted her, his face hard with anger. "If you keep behaving like this, you need to leave this house immediately." But Gwen acted as though nothing had happened. "What are you talking about? I haven't done anything wrong." The atmosphere in our home turned unbearable. Finally, Robert spoke up, his voice heavy with guilt. "I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." He blamed himself for never standing up to his wife and apologized to me deeply. Afterward, the stress pushed me to my breaking point. I started feeling unwell more and more often. Seeing this, Jake made a suggestion. "Why don't you take a break from time to time? Here, I found this brochure for a local community class." He handed me the pamphlet with a kind smile. I thought that maybe getting some fresh air and time to myself would help, so I agreed. I chose a pottery class that took place once a week. I dreamed of making beautiful dishes for my family to use one day, so I started attending classes with that goal in mind. That's where I met Linda, the instructor. Linda was cheerful and kind, and she quickly earned the trust and affection of everyone in the class. All right, let's enjoy ourselves today. Creating something with your hands is nourishment for the soul. Her words soothed me, and I began to feel like a weight was slowly lifting from my shoulders. After about 7 months, the renovation of my in-laws' house was finally complete. As I helped them move back into their home, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. But Gwen was still not done with herself just yet. The house looked brand new. Every inch of it was polished and pristine, reflecting the large sum of money spent on the renovation. She had spared no expense, and every detail of the interior and exterior reflected her meticulous taste. Since the house is finally finished, I'm going to throw a housewarming party. And of course, she demanded that I handle all the preparations for it. You're a useless wife who can't even manage the basics of parenting or housework, so the least you can do is help out for once. I'm sorry, but I'm not sure I can. Before I could finish, Gwen turned to Lily. Lily, your mommy is going to make all the food for Grandma's big party. Isn't that exciting? Mommy, I want your egg rolls. With Lily's innocent request, I felt like I had no choice but to agree. Gwen decided on the guest list herself, leaving me responsible for the cooking, drinks, and even the cleaning. At first, I suggested ordering catering or sushi trays, but she wouldn't allow it. What a waste of money. You're going to make everything from scratch. I couldn't help but think how hypocritical she was, always criticizing my cooking. But Lily's request reminded me why I was doing this, and I decided to focus on the task. On the day of the party, I woke up early and prepared a variety of hors d'oeuvres, pasta, and sandwiches. I carefully arranged everything in the ceramic dishes I had made at my pottery class. Relatives and family members began arriving at Jake's parents' house. Meanwhile, Gwen paraded Lily around, showing her off to everyone. She didn't lift a single finger to help, even though she was the host of the party. With Jake and his father's help, I managed to get everything ready. But then, disaster struck. Emily, come to the living room and serve our guests something to drink. She said this and left the room, claiming she needed to use the bathroom. When she didn't return after a while, I decided to check on her. I heard strange clattering sounds coming from the kitchen and walked over, my heart sinking with dread. What are you doing? There she was, throwing all of the food I had made into the trash. What does it look like? I'm getting rid of this garbage. She stood there, pouring dish soap over the food to make sure it was completely ruined. Stop. I worked so hard to make all of that. This isn't even fit for human consumption. Maybe you should take some cooking lessons. As a final blow, she picked up my handmade ceramic dishes and smashed them into the trash can, shattering them with a loud crash. Tears welled up in my eyes, but this time, anger overwhelmed me. This is too much. Jake appeared just in time, his voice thundering with rage. Mom, what the hell are you doing? Gwen turned around, her expression calm and dismissive. What do you mean? I'm throwing away that garbage. I can't possibly let our guests eat such slop. Emily worked so hard on this, since early this morning. His voice shook as he took in the scene, the food drenched in soap, my handmade ceramics smashed in the trash. I can't believe this. Mom, how could you do this? This is just too cruel. I can't take it anymore. I shouted, barely holding back my tears. Gwen scoffed and looked at me with disdain. It's because your cooking is terrible. For a dietitian, you don't seem to have much skill. That's enough, Mom. Get out of this house. Jake shouted, his voice carrying a level of anger I'd never heard before. What are you talking about? This is my house, and I have every right to be here. At that moment, Robert stepped into the kitchen, his face somber and tired. Stop this. What you've done is unforgivable. His low, calm voice echoed through the kitchen. For the first time, Gwen looked uneasy. You've spent your life manipulating everyone around you with your selfishness. I stayed quiet for too long, but I've had enough. Gwen opened her mouth to argue, but he cut her off. Throwing away Emily's food and destroying something she made with care? That's inexcusable even for you. But I'm not wrong. If you let people eat that garbage. Enough. Leave this house. When Robert shouted, the kitchen fell into complete silence. Gwen stood frozen for a moment before tears filled her eyes and she shrieked. All of you are abandoning me. How could you do that? You brought this on yourself, Mom. Jake spoke quietly, but his gaze was firm and unwavering. Just then, the doorbell rang. I blinked in surprise, but when I opened the door, I found Linda standing there. Linda? Emily, are you okay? I came to help out with the party. Is something wrong? Hearing Linda's kind voice, the tension that had been weighing me down suddenly began to lift. Oh, I'm sorry, Linda. We've had a bit of a situation here. Linda glanced around the kitchen, quickly piecing together what had happened. Mrs. Mitchell, what do you think you're doing? How could you ruin something Emily worked so hard to make? What? What does this have to do with you? It has everything to do with me. Emily is not only my student, but also my friend. At Linda's firm words, Gwen fell silent for a moment before trying to fire back. This is my house, and I can do whatever I want. This has nothing to do with you. It absolutely does. Wasting food is unacceptable, and throwing away something someone worked so hard to make, right in front of them, that's shameful behavior. Linda's voice was calm, but it carried a quiet anger that made the room feel even colder. Linda, I'm so sorry. This all happened because I've been too weak to stop her. At Robert's apology, Linda gave him a gentle nod. It's okay now. Emily has done more than enough. Mom, you need to leave. If you keep hurting Emily like this, I'll never forgive you. Jake's voice was filled with resolve. In contrast, his mother's voice trembled with both anger and desperation. You're throwing me out? This house has all my hard work and vision in it. That's enough. I paid for this entire renovation out of my own pocket. I'm done putting up with your selfishness. Robert's voice was quiet, but carried the weight of years of frustration. You're going to betray me as well? Why is everyone treating me like the bad guy? Pretending to be the victim won't work anymore. Maybe it's time you take a hard look at your actions. At Linda's words, Gwen fell silent, her face turning bright red with shame. After a long silence, Robert exhaled deeply. I've made up my mind. We're getting a divorce. At those words, Gwen's eyes widened in shock. What are you saying? You're joking, right? I'm not joking. After everything you've done, I can't live with you anymore. Dad? Jake looked shocked, but couldn't say a word when he saw the determination in his father's face. This house is in my name, and I paid for the renovations. Once we're divorced, you'll have to leave. What? And where am I supposed to go? I'll take you in. I can provide you with a place to stay and work. At Linda's sudden offer, Gwen's eyes widened again. Work? Me? Yes, I need someone to help around my house. I'm sure I can find something for you to do. Linda's words dripped with irony, but Gwen had no room to argue. If you're not happy with this offer, you'll have to figure things out on your own. Gwen's shoulders shook, and she fell silent, tears brimming in her eyes. After that, Jake's parents officially divorced, and his mother began working under Linda's supervision. I couldn't thank Linda enough. With Jake and his father, I finally reclaimed a peaceful life. Robert found a new hobby, gardening. He and Lily spent their days planting vegetables and flowers together in the yard. I never thought I'd get to enjoy such a peaceful retirement. The smile on his face was genuine, full of contentment. From now on, I want to treasure this peaceful life more than anything.
Lent mill my bike, crashed next day, half-paralyzed is better. Me, you mean your daughter, right? Mill, what?
It must have been hard. They said the brakes were broken, but surviving such an accident is a miracle, isn't it? Even though you're paralyzed from the waist down, I guess you're lucky. I was stunned. My mother-in-law, Heather's unbelievable insults, came through my smartphone. My husband Brian had rushed over, worried about me. Together, we were relieved that I was safe. But in the middle of that relief, Heather called with terrifying news. I was confused and overwhelmed. It had been raining that day. I was cycling down a hill to run an errand Heather had ordered. Suddenly, I slipped. The next thing I knew, I was in an ambulance being taken to the hospital. 5 years into my marriage, I had yet to be fully accepted as a daughter-in-law. Heather was always distant, but I had always tried to serve my in-laws and Brian with all my heart. I wanted to bridge the gap with Heather someday. For Brian's sake, I gave it my all. Despite my efforts, her heartless words about my injury broke me. It felt like a bucket of icy water had been poured over my head. Over the years, I endured her cruel words countless times. I told myself she was the woman who gave birth to and raised Brian. But this time, it was too much to bear. I finally decided that I couldn't stay silent anymore. I resolved to confront her about her words. Just then, the hospital contacted us. Brian picked up his phone, looking pale. Suddenly, he shouted in disbelief. "Dad, is that true? What happened to my sister?" The reality that came through the phone was devastating. My sister. She was in a terrible accident. She might become paralyzed from the waist down. At that moment, Heather's eerie smile flashed through my mind. My thoughts raced back to her unusual behavior the previous day. Yesterday, she had asked me to borrow my bicycle. Then today, after my accident, she had called me almost gleefully. Her words now felt deliberate, as though she had foreseen the accident. A chill ran down my spine as pieces of a puzzle began to come together. Heather's voice from the phone earlier echoed in my mind. "It's terrible about the brakes, isn't it? But hey, you're lucky to be alive. Even if you're paralyzed, it could have been worse." Her words had seemed so casual, almost rehearsed. As I stood there frozen, Brian's phone rang again. He quickly answered, his expression tense. He turned to me, his voice shaking. "Mom might have misunderstood something. She thought you were the one with the serious injuries." That moment, the truth hit me like a bolt of lightning. The puzzle pieces snapped into place, forming a horrifying picture. Heather borrowed my bike yesterday. Today, she assumed I was the one gravely injured in an accident, and her reaction, it all felt deliberate. I couldn't shake the feeling that she had somehow orchestrated it. My thoughts were interrupted by Heather's voice on the phone. "Lisa, are you listening? We need to discuss your future. Since you're paralyzed now, it's time you leave this house." Her words were cold and matter-of-fact. My body trembled as I tried to process her intentions. "Are you talking about my sister-in-law?" A stunned silence followed my question. What do you mean?" I steadied my voice and spoke slowly. "Brian just got a call from the hospital. They said your daughter is the one who's been seriously injured." The silence on the other end of the line stretched on. "That's impossible." Her voice quivered, as though she was finally realizing the weight of the situation. "What are you saying? Sarah? No, that can't be." Her voice trembled, filled with disbelief and panic. "Yes, the hospital called. They said your daughter has been paralyzed from the waist down." I could hear her breathing quicken, almost erratic. No, that's not true. Sarah? My Sarah?" Her tone shifted, turning desperate and confused. She continued muttering to herself, her voice breaking. "Oh, this can't be happening. There must be a mistake." Brian and I exchanged a look. His face was pale, his jaw tight with worry. "I think we need to go to the hospital immediately." "You're right. Mom, we're heading there now. Let's talk when we arrive." Heather didn't respond. Without wasting time, Brian and I rushed to the hospital. As we approached Sarah's room, we could hear shouting from inside. "Get out! All of you, leave me alone! Give me my life back!" We entered the room cautiously. The sight before us was shocking. Sarah was a mess. She was sobbing uncontrollably, her hair disheveled. She threw anything she could grab at the doctors and her father. For a moment, I felt a pang of pity for her. Then I noticed Heather sitting near the entrance. She was trembling, clutching her knees to her chest. "Heather, are you okay? Please, stay strong." But she didn't respond. Her eyes were vacant, and she mumbled something under her breath. "This isn't my fault. It's not my fault." Her words sent a chill down my spine. My suspicions about her deepened. I turned to confront her, but before I could speak, Sarah screamed again. "What am I supposed to do now? How am I supposed to live like this?" She then looked toward her mother, her eyes filled with desperation. "Mom, help me. Please, tell me what to do." Heather froze, her face contorted with guilt and fear. Finally, she spoke, her voice cold and detached. "There's nothing I can do for you. You're on your own." The room fell silent. The air was heavy and suffocating. Sarah's face twisted in anguish. "How can you say that? How can you abandon me like this?" Her voice cracked, and tears streamed down her face. Brian stepped forward, his voice shaking with anger. "Mom, how could you say something so cruel? She's your daughter." But Heather just sat there, holding her head in her hands, muttering, "It's all ruined. Everything is ruined." The weight of her words and actions hung over us all. Brian and I stood there, stunned by the scene unfolding before us. Sarah sat in her hospital bed, sobbing, while her mother remained unresponsive. My father-in-law, Nathan, finally broke the silence, his voice trembling with anger. "That's enough, Heather. How can you say such things? She needs us now more than ever." Heather didn't respond. She just buried her face in her hands and rocked back and forth. Sarah's cries grew louder, filled with despair. "My life is over. I can't live like this." Watching Sarah fall apart, I felt an overwhelming urge to help her. I stepped forward and gently placed my hand on her shoulder. "Sarah, I've seen how hard you're trying. I know this is beyond difficult, but I'll help you through your rehabilitation." Sarah looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak. "Why? Why would you help me? After everything I've done to you?" I smiled softly, feeling my own eyes well up. "Because I know you're trying, and that's what matters. We can move forward together." Sarah broke down again, but this time it wasn't out of despair. She cried openly, clutching her blanket, as if finally releasing years of suppressed emotions. I stayed by her side until she calmed down. Later that evening, after returning home, I shared everything with Brian and father-in-law. Both of them sat silently, absorbing the weight of what had happened. I never thought it would come to this. Neither did I, but something has to change. We can't go on like this. A heavy silence settled over the room. The following days were emotionally draining. Sarah was still grappling with her new reality, but she began to open up to me more. We talked during my visits, and though her progress was slow, there was a glimmer of hope. One day, Sarah apologized. It was unexpected and heartfelt. "Lisa, I've treated you terribly. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need to say I'm sorry." "Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot to me." Slowly, the barriers between us began to break down. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah's attitude continued to shift. She began to share more about her childhood and her relationship with her mother. I always thought I had to be perfect for her. If I didn't excel, I felt like I wasn't worth anything. Her voice was heavy with regret and pain. Listening to her, I started to piece together the puzzle of their family dynamics. You were trying so hard to meet her expectations, weren't you? Sarah nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. I thought I was doing everything right. But now, I see. She didn't love me. She loved what I represented. Her words hung in the air, bitter and raw. I didn't know what to say. I simply reached out and held her hand. Over time, Sarah began to trust me more. She even confided in me about the day of the accident. That necklace. It wasn't mine. Mom convinced me to take it, saying it wasn't fair that you had it. My heart clenched as I remembered the pain of losing that precious gift from Brian. I understand now. Thank you for telling me. Sarah looked ashamed but grateful for my response. A few weeks later, Sarah surprised me with something unexpected. I found it. Your necklace. She held it out to me, her hand shaking. I'm so sorry for everything. I hope this can help make things right. Tears filled my eyes as I took the necklace from her. Thank you, Sarah. This means so much to me. That moment felt like the beginning of a new chapter for both of us. Meanwhile, tensions at home continued to simmer. Heather rarely visited Sarah in the hospital. Instead, she locked herself in her room, avoiding everyone. Brian and father-in-law grew increasingly distant from her. I don't know what's going through her mind anymore. Maybe it's time we stopped trying to figure her out. Their words reflected the growing rift in our family. One day, during one of my visits to the hospital, Sarah opened up even more. Lisa, I've been thinking a lot about everything. I need to start over. For myself. Her words were filled with determination. I think that's a wonderful idea, Sarah. She smiled faintly, and I could see that she was slowly finding strength. Meanwhile, at home, Heather continued to act strangely. She rarely left her room, and when she did, she avoided everyone. Brian, Nathan, and I discussed what to do next. We can't keep living like this. Something has to change. I think it's time we confront her. Before we could act, however, the unexpected happened. One weekend, while we were visiting Sarah, the police showed up at the hospital. The tension in the room became unbearable. We've investigated the accident further and found tampering with a bicycle. The officer's words left us stunned. We'd like to speak to the bicycle's owner. My heart pounded as all eyes turned toward me. I don't know anything about this. Despite my protests, the officers insisted on taking me in for questioning. Brian and Nathan looked horrified, but neither could stop what was happening. As I was being taken away, I saw Heather standing at the back of the room. She wore a faint smile, and my stomach turned. At the station, the interrogation began. I repeated that I knew nothing about the tampering. Then, suddenly, the truth came to light. Brian remembered the hidden cameras we had installed months ago. He rushed home to retrieve the footage. The footage clearly showed Heather tampering with a bicycle. When the evidence was presented to the police, they immediately shifted their focus. Heather was brought in for questioning and eventually arrested. The relief I felt was overwhelming. I'm so sorry you had to go through this, Lisa. He hugged me tightly, his voice trembling. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of safety and love. Though Heather was given a suspended sentence, the damage was done. Brian and I decided to leave the house and start fresh. Nathan supported our decision and even chose to divorce Heather. Sarah, too, began to distance herself from her mother. My family is Lisa, Nathan, and Brian now. That's all I need. With her determination, Sarah excelled in her rehabilitation. She even resumed work remotely, regaining a sense of independence. Brian and I settled into our new home, close to Sarah and my father-in-law. On our next wedding anniversary, we celebrated with a peaceful dinner. Just the two of us. I wish we had done this sooner. No more interruptions or tension. Just us. It's been a difficult journey, but I'm grateful for what we've gained. Brian smiled at me, his eyes soft with affection. And in that moment, I knew we were finally at peace.
My wealthy fiance's family rejected me for being poor, but their reaction when my father showed up.
My name is Abby Davis, and I'm 28 years old. I currently work in the HR department at a large and successful company in Los Angeles. My boyfriend is Michael Carter. He's 2 years older than me, and we met in college through a student club. We've been dating for 8 years now. We started seriously thinking about marriage 4 or 5 years ago, and both of us began saving up little by little for it. And this year, on my birthday, he finally proposed to me. I had imagined a romantic proposal at a fancy restaurant, enjoying delicious food and wine. He would snap his fingers, the waiter would nod and dim the lights. Then, a spotlight would shine on our table, and he'd pull out a small box from his jacket pocket and open it gently. That's the kind of dreamy proposal I had envisioned, but reality was far from this, and he proposed to me during one of our camping trips. In front of us, the campfire crackled as he cooked his favorite stew. I was sipping on a glass of wine, waiting for the food to finish. Just as a spark popped from the campfire. "Here." "What's this?" "It's a ring." "A ring?" "Yeah, let's finally get married. It's about time we got serious, don't you think?" "You're right. I've been thinking the same thing, so why not? There's no time like the present, right?" "Great, it's settled then." "Yeah, cheers to that." I was pretty tipsy at the time. Looking back, I thought maybe it could have been a bit more romantic. But then again, a glamorous proposal didn't really suit us. This kind of laid-back proposal felt more like us. A few weeks after the proposal, Michael came to my parents' house to formally introduce himself. "I'm so nervous." "Well, think of this as your first big test. Do your best for us and for our future." "Yeah, sure. But don't forget, you'll have your turn soon enough." I know. I'm ready for it. I'll just take notes on how you handled today." "Ugh, you're still as sly as ever." "Blaming yourself for falling for a woman like me. Look, my parents' house." "All right, let's do this. Time to focus." "Focus is great, but don't forget your appearance. First impressions are pretty important. Here, let me fix your tie." I adjusted his slightly crooked tie and tightened it neatly. For a moment, I felt like his wife already, and the thought secretly made me happy. My parents live in a house in the suburbs. It's a 4-bedroom home with a relatively spacious yard. My dad has loved the outdoors since he was young, and he actually met my mom through his hiking hobby. Naturally, I developed a love for the outdoors too, and camping became one of my favorite hobbies. Overall, I think of my family as pretty ordinary. My dad is retired now, but he still works part-time at a relative's company. He jokes that he's never given any real work to do. "Getting paid for nothing, life's pretty great," he often laughs. But they're both healthy and cheerful, and for that, I'm thankful. When we arrived, my parents greeted us warmly at the front door. "Nice to meet you." Clearly nervous, Michael stammered through introducing himself, despite having said his name 1,000 times before. But when he confidently declared, "I'd like to marry your daughter, Abby," I couldn't help but fall for him all over again. "So, Michael, are you sure that Abby is the one for you? If you say that she's good enough, then sure, you have our blessing." "What do you mean, if I'm good enough? Seriously, Dad?" He's always been one to make a joke out of every situation, so I can't exactly blame him, though. "So, our Abby's getting married. Once you're married, you'll move far away, won't you? Abby, you'll feel so far from us." "Oh, Mom, what are you talking about?" I shook my head. My parents really are in a world of their own. Even so, Michael seemed to relax a bit after a while. All right, now that the introductions are done, stay and have dinner with us. What was supposed to be a simple introduction quickly turned into a lively dinner party. Why don't you stay over tonight? However, when Mom called Michael's parents to inform them, things took an unexpected turn. We appreciate the offer, but we'll have to decline. We can't have him staying in some unfamiliar house and then getting hit with an unexpected bill later. What an unbelievably rude thing to say. Excuse me, are you saying we'd do something like that? I'm saying it's a possibility. Fine, then I'll tell Michael he should leave right away. Yes, please do that. When the call ended, my mom was absolutely furious. How dare he say something so insulting? What's going on? We kindly offered for Michael to stay over, and his father accuses us of trying to extort money. At that moment, Michael walked over, looking apologetic. I'm so sorry. My parents were scammed once, and now they tend to distrust even acts of kindness. It's not your fault, Michael. We'll take things slow and build a good relationship, I'm sure of it. The night was fun. Take good care of Abby. Dad gave Michael a reassuring pat on the shoulder, trying to lighten the mood. In the end, Michael didn't stay the night and went home. At the time, I had no idea about the true nature of Michael's father. And then, it was my turn to meet Michael's parents. Michael's father, Robert, was a self-made entrepreneur. He had taken over a small machine shop from his parents and turned it into a large manufacturing company with his sharp business acumen. He was quite successful, and naturally, their family home was luxurious. It was a 3-story mansion surrounded by high walls, complete with a modern steel structure. Now, it's your turn to be nervous, Abby. Of course I'm nervous. Who wouldn't be? Look, we're here. Just make sure you're presenting yourself well. Yeah, thanks. I entered the house nervously, greeted Michael's mother politely, and was shown to the living room. There, seated in a grand armchair, was Michael's father. Hello, it's nice to meet you. My name is Abby Davis. I'm here today because Michael and I have decided to get married, and we were looking to get your blessing. I'm Robert Carver, so you've come all the way here to introduce yourself. I'd tell you not to be nervous, but I suppose that's easier said than done. Relax if you can. Oh, yes, thank you. Michael's father had an intimidating presence, and he didn't seem to be in the best mood. Anyways, let's get straight to the point. Sure. Was there something that you wanted to ask? What exactly is your aim here? I'm sorry, my aim? What do you mean? To put it simply, I'm the CEO of a major company, in case you didn't know. But as you can see, I have considerable wealth. I'm asking if that's what you're after. I was stunned. What I'm after? What other reason could I possibly have in marrying Michael other than loving him and wanting to build a happy home together? I couldn't believe he'd come up with such an outrageous assumption. No, that couldn't be further from the truth. If you don't mind me asking, what do your parents currently do for a living? My father is retired, but now works in a relative's company. I'm not sure about the specifics, but he enjoys staying active and working there. My mother is a homemaker, and she's living happily. Hearing this, Michael's father leaned back in his chair with an air of superiority. I see. From what you've described, it doesn't sound like your family is particularly well off. And what about you? What do you do for a living? I work in the HR department at a large corporate office here in the city. HR, huh? Not exactly a position with much potential for promotion, is it? Well, I suppose not. So that means after marriage, you'll be relying on Michael and me for financial support. I couldn't stop myself from gasping at his presumptuous statement. Excuse me? What was this man even talking about? This was the moment my patience snapped. What exactly do you mean by that? I mean exactly as I said. Your family is poor, so you're trying to snag my wealthy son as your ticket to a comfortable life. Your parents probably expect you to rely on him to fund their retirement, too. Not only was he insulting me, But he also had the audacity to drag my parents into this. I couldn't let that slide. What did you just say? My voice rose sharply without me realizing it. That's incredibly disrespectful. Dad, this is way out of line. Her parents are wonderful people. When I met them, they welcomed me warmly. They're not the type to chase money or depend on me. Stay out of this. You're naive and don't know how the world works. Leave this to me. Then allow me to say my piece. I interrupted their heated exchange, my voice calm but firm. Poor? Sure, compared to your family, we're not rich. But we live a perfectly respectable life. And don't you dare talk about my parents like that. I respect them deeply, and they've done a wonderful job raising me. Abby, calm down. Stay out of this. My sharp retort made Robert glare at me. When I say poor, I mean anyone with less money than us. Marriages don't work unless both parties are on the same financial level. Poor people always end up expecting handouts from the wealthy. And that's exactly what will happen if you marry my son. It's inevitable. This man was so quick to make baseless assumptions. Something inside me snapped. In that case, I've had enough. Feel free to find someone else worthy of your wealth. Goodbye. I stood up abruptly. Yes, please do that. Robert, what are you saying? Michael and his mom looked panicked, but I didn't look back as I walked out. Michael hurriedly chased after me. Wait, Abby. No, I've had enough. What is wrong with your dad? Treating people like beggars? It's disgusting. Michael was visibly panicked as I turned. Let's just call it a day today and try again some other time. He's in a bad mood today, that's all. No, I'm done. Why should I have to listen to him insult me like that? He needs to stop looking down on people like that. Please calm down. Let's sit somewhere and grab a drink. We should both take some time to cool off. I don't want to calm down right now. I'm going home. And don't even think about calling me to change my mind. After that, Michael tried calling and messaging me several times, but I ignored every one of them. Still fuming, I returned home and told my parents everything that had happened. That's pretty harsh. Do we really look that poor to him? Dad's face was twisted in frustration. That's just terrible. Michael's such a good guy, but this is even worse than that phone call we had with his dad. So, what do you think about all this? Are you ready to break things off with Michael? No, that's not it. I still love him, and I still want to marry him. I see. Why don't you take some time to cool off, and then go meet his parents again? If things still don't work out, I'll step in myself. Really? You'd do that for me, Dad? Of course. Anything for my little girl. His words were so reassuring. Maybe they just needed some time to get to know our family better. You need to have a proper talk and make his stubborn father understand who we really are. Encouraged by my parents, I decided to meet Michael's parents again. A few days later, I called Michael and asked him to set up another meeting with his parents. Really? That's great. I'm sure if we talk things through, he'll understand. Michael was thrilled and immediately began making the arrangements. The weekend arrived, and with it, the second round of this confrontation. Once again, I found myself at Michael's family's home. Thinking back to his father's rudeness, I felt a fire ignite within me, but I maintained a calm exterior. Are you okay, Abby? Yeah, I'm ready. I took a deep breath and stepped into the house with purpose. Michael's mother greeted us warmly at the door. Oh, Abby, welcome. You've come to see Robert again, haven't you? Yes, I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but I'd like the chance to speak with him again. Linda gave me a faint, somewhat strained smile as she led me to the living room. Sitting in the same chair as before was Michael's father, Robert Carter. His expression was openly displeased, and his eyes held the same condescending glare as before. So, you've come back. Those words immediately chilled the room's atmosphere. How many times do I have to say it? I have nothing to discuss with you. Even so, I'd like to speak with you one more time today. Humph. I hope you know that you're just wasting your time. I won't approve this marriage. I won't hand over my son to a family with no money. His words felt like needles piercing my chest, but I kept my expression neutral. Mr. Carter, do you truly believe my family is that poor? Your father is retired and now works for a relative, doesn't he? That's not a real job, that's freeloading. His words ignited a fury within me, but I held it back for now. And your job, HR, was it? There's no career growth there, so naturally, you'll just depend on us after marriage, right? I clenched my fists tightly. His dismissive attitude filled me with frustration. As I've said before, I have no such intention. My parents may not live extravagantly, but I'm proud of them and the life they've built. Proud? Huh. Being proud of poverty. That's laughable. A person's worth is determined by money. That's an unshakable truth. Dad, that's enough. I'm marrying Abby, and that's all there is to it. Stay out of this. Robert shouted and slammed his fist on the table. So money is that important to you, isn't it? My voice was cold but steady. What did you say? But I'm not like that. Money is important, yes, but a person's worth isn't defined by it. Trust and love between people, that's what builds a happy family. A mix of surprise and irritation crossed Robert's face. Don't give me that idealistic nonsense. Poor people have no choice but to depend on the rich. That mindset is nothing but outdated prejudice. I have no intention of relying on your money. For a brief moment, Robert seemed at a loss for words. And then the doorbell rang. Oh, who could that be? He's here. I whispered softly and stood up calmly. Who is it? The living room door opened slowly. Standing there was my father, John Davis. His expression was calm, yet his presence carried an undeniable authority. It's been a long time, Robert. My father's deep, steady voice resonated throughout the room. John Davis. Robert's face paled in an instant. The arrogance he had displayed earlier disappeared, replaced by shock and unease. Yes, no need to look so surprised. I'm here today as a father, for the sake of my daughter. I can't believe it. John Davis is actually standing in my living room. You're John Davis, formerly a first lieutenant in the Army. That's correct. Back in the day, I was your superior officer, wasn't I, Robert? At those words, Robert visibly flinched. That's right. There's no mistake. First Lieutenant John Davis was my commanding officer when I enlisted as a recruit. Robert, you know John? Yes, he trained me rigorously during my time in the military. That's right. When you first enlisted, you were just a green recruit who didn't know a thing. I trained and drilled you, and that's a big part of how you became the man you are today. Robert was completely outmatched now, rendered speechless. I heard about how you looked down on Abby and insulted our family. Robert, you're not a young recruit anymore. Why are you still hung up on hierarchies like you were back then? Robert's face grew even paler. That wasn't my intention. Is that so? Then why did you call my daughter a pauper? It's fine to take pride in your wealth, but using it to measure others is wrong. John's sharp, commanding tone made Robert shrink further into his chair. You're absolutely right. I'm terribly sorry. By the way, do you know the company I've been with since I left the military? What? Smithsonian Heavy Industries. Oh, it's a company that has dealings with yours. I'm the director of their technology development division. At that moment, Robert's face turned ashen. Smithsonian Heavy Industries. It can't be. I'm not here to discuss business matters today. But if you continue to demean my family, I may need to reevaluate that partnership. With those words, Robert fell completely silent. And so, my father's resolute demeanor turned the tide. Robert, I'll forgive you, but stop standing in the way of your son and my daughter's happiness. Understood. I truly apologize for everything. With my father's firm and commanding presence, the entire situation shifted dramatically. Realizing there was no point in resisting further, Robert let out a deep sigh. Abby, John, please forgive my rude behavior. Thank you, Mr. Carter. I felt the tension finally leave my body. His words slowly began to melt away the bitterness that had lingered within me. Thanks, Dad. I'm glad you finally understand. Well, I suppose that settles things. Robert, maybe this is a good time for you to reconsider some of your perspectives. You're right. I need to reevaluate a lot of things. I'm so glad. This is how it should have been all along. Michael's mother wiped at her eyes, which had grown teary with relief. After that, we moved forward with discussions about our wedding. My father, now wearing a calm expression, gave his blessing to me and Michael. Michael, take good care of Abby. Of course. I promise I will. Dad, thank you for everything. And so the long battle finally came to an end. We had taken the first steps towards becoming a true family. A few months later, Michael and I successfully held our wedding. On the day of the wedding, among the many guests celebrating with us, were my parents' old military colleagues. Midway through the reception, my father's colleagues took the stage to perform a surprise act. All right. As a special gift from all of us, we have something unique for the bride and groom. And what began next was none other than a military-style exercise routine. My father's colleagues executed sharp, disciplined movements, and at the head of the group was, of all people, Robert. Attention! 1, 2, 3, 4. The room burst into laughter, and Michael and I couldn't help but laugh along. Robert, how did you end up doing this? It's because John asked me to do it. What choice did I have? Oh, come on. You seem to be enjoying yourself quite a bit. The performance by my father's colleagues added a memorable highlight to the wedding. Our wedding was filled with warmth and laughter from beginning to end. Several years later, Michael and I were blessed with 2 sons and were enjoying a happy life together. My parents absolutely adored their grandchildren and made it a point to visit us every weekend. The sight of his grandchildren always turned my father into a doting softy, and he seemed to live for the time he spent playing with them. One day, my father's old military colleagues came to visit us at the house. Watching my father play in the yard with his grandchildren, his friend wore an expression of disbelief. The infamous Davis the Demon, acting like this. I can't believe it. Davis the Demon was the nickname my father had earned during his military days. As a strict and commanding officer, my father was once feared by many, so seeing this softer side of him was understandably shocking. All right, here we go. Do you want to be real heroes? Yes, we do. My father's booming voice and the children's exciting shouts echoed through the yard, and my mother and I couldn't help but laugh along with them. Honestly, your father's just like a child himself when he's with them. But seeing him like this makes me so happy. My mother and I watched them, covered in mud, smiling softly at the heartwarming scene. Meanwhile, Michael's father, Robert, had undergone a complete transformation. The prejudice and coldness he had when we first met were now long gone, and he genuinely looked forward to seeing his grandchildren grow. All right, Grandpa's got the swing. You two better hold on, because this is going to be a big push. Grandpa, harder! Watching him smile as he pushed the swing, it was hard to believe he was once the stubborn, prejudiced man I first met. Family is something that grows slowly but surely through mutual understanding and support. And I realized we were finally building that kind of family. My boys, one day you might become real heroes. Until then, keep striving, my future heroes. Smiling, I look toward the future, silently vowing to cherish the happiness of my family.